who is a cardiothoracic surgeon by training and is here from Indiana. Welcome to the subcommittee, and you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to associate myself with the comments of our unanimous comments of our expert panel in recommending that parents get their children immunized to prevent childhood diseases. All of my children are immunized. Based on the testimony we've heard today, it seems like we could have had a monovalent vaccine available by maybe December. And if that's true, do you lack, Dr. Shuckett, do you lack the authority to make that happen in that way, or whomever is? Because through the testimony we've asked, I think a lot of members have asked, what can we do to help? But for us, for Congress to help, we have to have a specific thing to help with. So is there new authority or any other authority that would be helpful to make this happen?
I don't believe so. The key issue is a risk assessment and trying to predict the most likely course of events, but I believe there are authorities if the decision is made to go ahead with the monovalent, whether for pandemic or for drift.
Okay. As a healthcare provider, I know that liability is a significant issue in our American healthcare system, and not only physician malpractice, but product liability is a substantial issue. I know that it has an effect on the healthcare industry. Anyone that can comment on this, does product liability issues affect our ability to act in a more nimble way when it comes to vaccines? Because you do have private companies that produce these, so let's start with that, and then I'll spearhead off from there.
The Vaccine Injury Compensation Program exists so that product liability won't be a factor, so that we can make sure that we have vaccines made, but that people who are injured by vaccines are compensated. And so that is, the funding for that comes from an excise tax on every vaccine dose that is sold, so that we know that vaccines are very safe, but there are sometimes rare, important complications, and the injury compensation program exists for those families who've been injured.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, but I think that's important to understand. Dr. Mithun, from the FDA standpoint, is there I don't want to say this, a risk-averse, regulatory process? It seems like at the FDA, over a number of years, but for a variety of reasons, I think, been, in my view, sometimes overly cautious with new products or changing quickly. Do you see that as an issue, and that comes into the liability issue again? Is there resistance or reluctance to quickly move based on the concern about these type of things?
No, I don't see that. I think in the influenza domain, we every year are primed to approve the new vaccine strains that are recommended for inclusion in the vaccine those years. I think also our record of having approved since 2003. I think in 2003 we had 3 licensed influenza vaccines. Today we have 16 licensed influenza vaccines, including our cell-based, recombinant-based, quadrivalent, high dose. And also I should point out that many of those we actually approved using accelerated approval, which actually allows us to approve something based on an immune response that is likely to predict clinical benefit. And so we've used the accelerated approval regulations to approve any of those and get them to market more quickly. So I think and also I should point out we approved the novel adjuvanted H5N1 vaccine in 2013. So I think that we really look very carefully and balance the benefits and the risks, and are really very flexible.
Great, that's good to hear. There's a recent CDC study that looked at clinician practices on patients that come to the emergency room with, and the data is striking. Only 16% of patients with laboratory-confirmed influenza were prescribed antiviral drugs. So the first question I had, do they work? Do the antiviral drugs work?
Yeah, last week there was a new meta-analysis of all the published and unpublished randomized controlled trial data on oseltamivir, and it shed new light on the benefits as well as potential risks. That so there is benefit for
short answer, they do work, because I'm running out of time.
Yes.
Because surprisingly, 30% of the patients with laboratory-confirmed influenza 30% were prescribed one of the 3 common antibiotics, which are for bacteria, not viruses. Is there anything that we can do to better, you know, as a physician, better make the, you know, change that practice? Maybe Dr. Fauci can answer that.
Yeah, that's another whole issue of antimicrobial resistance, which we've even discussed before this committee. So certainly over the last year, there has been an extraordinary effort on the part of the Congress and the administration from everything from executive orders to 5-year plans to counter the kinds of practices that lead to antimicrobial resistance. And one of the most common, as I'm sure you're aware, sir, is that someone comes in with a viral infection and they get an antibiotic. That's very, very common, unfortunately.